are you?
Pretty well, thanks. And you?
All right. The weather, I was gonna catch y'all coming in. What you look for?
Not sure.
Oh, I know they don't, but they ain't different.
Bon voyage. Aye,
Oh,
aye, Captain.
Oh, sure, everybody rearranged it. So they all come out. Oh, we're in business. We're in business. We're in business.
Shortly.
Well, we just got enough people.
This has to be managed for
All of
council.
We're ready. It's time certain and it's 5:31. Can you go ahead and open up, please?
5:30 on my clock.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started in just a moment. We're ready to get started. Okay. First of all, thank you, everybody, for coming out. At this time, we're going to go ahead and we're going to call the Town Council meeting, the local planning agency meeting of May 31st, 2023 into session. Roll call, please.
Mayor Alberry.
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Buchanan Webb.
Here.
Councilmember Davis Quinn.
here.
Thank you so much. We do have a quorum, and at this time, we, of course, this is a public hearing to entertain ordinance number 2023-01, and that is to consider and make recommendations to the Town Council specifically as it relates to those items on the agenda. So at this time, we're going to go to our Town Manager for any comments before we get started.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and board members, on your agenda tonight, you'll see that we have an application from a developer, Mr. Nathan Rich, and his representative, Josh Nichols of Schmidt Nichols. They are requesting a comp plan amendment, and Mr. Nichols will come up and give the presentation. I'd invite you to ask any questions. Just for public knowledge, our attorney is out tonight, but she is on the phone.
So noted. Thank you so much. Okay.
Hi, Mitty. How are you? Good. For the record, Josh Nichols with Schmidt Nichols, here this evening on the comp plan and text amendments to the town's code and comp plan. And again, thank you so much for calling this special meeting. We really appreciate it. I know everyone understands we're under a time constraint to be able to seek funding through the state, and so that's why we're here this evening to keep us on track for that. So I do have a there we go. So I do have a presentation that I will run through that everyone's on the same page. I think you have it in front of you on your tablet, so if you could follow along. So again, just first page, which is kind of background, table of contents, basis for change, and then the actual amendments we're proposing, as well as a quick overview of the facility, even though this is more catered again to the comp plan and zoning text. So again, the background, if you turn to slide 3, this is a vacant lot within the Central Park of Commerce and Medicine, which is actually where we're sitting today. This is all part of that same Commerce Park. The zoning is PCC with a commercial future land use. So all of these changes are predicated on what the existing future land use and zoning are today. Slide 4 is the basis for change. So this basis for change, so as you can see here, we have kind of residential, what we're trying to propose is the residential within a PCC in the bioscience overlay. So the obstacles we had there were in the comp plan. We have one of the tables doesn't align with the existing zoning text. It prohibits residential. There's a deterrent of residential and then another prohibition. So we need to change the comp plan in a couple sections to allow the residential. And again, this not only helps this specific planned commercial development, but it also unlocks some of the other areas within the town that have been limited, such as the High Life facility. So that way we can unlock that area for future residential or mixed-use development. And then we have the text amendments again within the table flu-1, revising the policy 3.6.2, 3.6.4, and then to mimic what's in the zoning ordinance. So we'll go into the specifics on slide 5. So this is that table flu-1. So again, this is language to match basically the underlying zoning allowance. So the zoning allows for residential within the PCC, but the the bioscience overlay doesn't. So again, this is just matching those two. So what we're adding here is that residential uses shall be limited to eligible PCC zone parcels that do support the commercial future land use, which this already does. Maximum density intensity, again, changing that. So commercial would have a 1.0 FAR, and the residential would have no density limitation. It would all be done by setbacks and height, parking, those types of limitations. So that's very, very similar to many local jurisdictions on the FAR for residential. Going on to slide 6, these are the 3 other comp plan text amendments. So again, adding that the residential uses are prohibited unless in an area that already has future land use designation. So that's one of the corrections there. Policy 3.6.4, instead of deter the conversion, we're changing that to limit. So again, just a small change there. And then 3.6.6, again, removing that prohibition on residential and changing that to unless the area has a commercial future land use. So again, we've already got that commercial land use in place. On to slide 7. So slide 7 is the beginning of the zoning. So we have the comp plan side, and then we have the zoning side. So these are the zoning amendments. So I have slides for each of these backups of these text amendments, so I'll kind of skip over to that. But basically, we're looking for a lot coverage increase, the building height, the residential within the PCC, which is already allowed, but putting it into a couple of the tables, and then clarifying some of the parking requirements. So I'll go through those more specifically. So again, on slide 8, we have residential would be 6 stories or 70 feet. So this would accommodate the proposed facility that we are looking to construct. That's really the only change there. Going on to slide 9, again, the language already exists that allows the residential within the PCC, but we're just putting it in the chart in the permitted uses so that way it's clear. So that's slide 9. Slide 10, very similar as well. Again, bioscience doesn't allow the residential, so we're adding the residential, and again, we need to make that match within all of the code requirements. So again, adding in the bioscience overlay, the ability to do residential, not exceeding 20% of the overall PCC. Slide 11, again, bioscience overlay standards item, and this is for the maximum floor area ratio that it would not apply to residential. Again, similar to a lot of the jurisdictions within the local area. And then also the building height to not exceed 6 stories or 70 feet in height. Moving on to slide 12. Again, this is in the bioscience. This is to limit this. Ultimately, limited the amount of land use for residential purposes, and we would allow for 20% to allow to be permitted by right. So that's the change there for the residential component. Now we're into slide 13, which is the off-street parking. And the off-street parking, for some reason there was a differentiation between residential and commercial, that the sizes would be bigger for residential. So what we've done is we've changed the standard to only apply to single family and townhouse. So the reason being is a townhouse or a single family would in theory have a driveway. So that driveway would be wider than the typical commercial space. So we said, in speaking with Van and with staff, said that this type of building that we're doing with the 6 stories with the parking underneath is more of a commercial nature, so it doesn't have to have that same size requirement. So that's what that change is. Off-street parking, so this is the actual calculation of off-street parking, and this was similar. Riviera Beach just did this exact change to their code about 3-4 months ago, and this is to reduce for elderly housing, shall provide at least 0.8 parking spaces per unit. And elderly shall include independent living units and assisted living units. And the parking ratio for elderly housing in the PCC shall require a license or deed restriction mandating the site be used for elderly housing. So it locks it into that use. So all of these changes that we talked about in the code lead us to slide 15. I know that everyone's probably seen the pretty pictures, but again, this is the basis for the change, is that the bioscience overlay really hasn't done what many thought it would do, is to bring in all this new biotechnology and things, and it really hasn't matured into that. So I think there's now a real need for housing, and especially senior housing. So that's why we've identified this parcel as proposed change. There's about currently 5 vacant parcels zoned PCC within the town. And again, affordable housing for seniors especially is in very high demand within the town and within the county, and also serves as a needed infill residential component. So with that, I'm here with our development team, and we're here to answer any questions. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the presentation. So at this time, we'll see if there's any questions or comments council may have. Any council comments or questions?
I did all my questions.
Fortunately, I heard a good presentation at the bioscience review, so.
I have no question at this time.
Righty, if we can just go back to slide 14, just to get better clarity on the parking issue. Now, of course, as you stated earlier in the presentation, that this doesn't just apply to the parcel that you're looking at. Why we're basically doing a text code, a change would apply town-wide.
That's correct.
So now, when we look at that last sentence in blue, let me go back. That last sentence in blue. Now, this is an addition, a correction where you're actually putting that last parking units located in the PCC, which house elderly, shall provide at least 0.0 parking spaces per unit. Now, this is, of course, for the record, so that we're clear, that's only for that as stated here for residential communities or projects.
Correct.
That particular 0.8 would only be applied to that.
That is specific to elderly and independent living and assisted living units that cater toward elderly. Yes,
Okay.
Specific to that.
I think there was elsewhere. And for the record, of course, we make mention of the bioscience overlay. But you just want to sort of elaborate there for the record as well?
Say
the
that again.
bioscience, what may have taken place as it relates to the bioscience?
Which
meeting approvals, anything that may have happened as well?
I'm not sure I follow on this site, or?
Approval from the.
Oh, sorry, the bioscience overlay. Oh, the folks, okay, sorry. So yes, we did meet with that board. They had a special meeting as well. They convened, and we were able to receive unanimous approval from them. They were all in favor, and I think they may even go a step further and potentially dissolve the bioscience overlay. It covers something like 15,000 acres, I think, within the county, something of that. And they really haven't seen. I think Scripps was coming in hot and heavy about 15 years ago or so, and they didn't end up moving into the county. We had a couple pockets of it in Jupiter area and unincorporated, but that was about it. So I think at this point there's really been a change to see other uses come in place and kind of remove some of these restrictions that have been holding up progress. So that was kind of their sentiment, I think, if I could put that in words. But
Okay, thanks so much. And just for the record, I just wanted to make sure that as a presenter, that it was on the record coming from you as opposed to a description from council.
absolutely.
Okay, any other questions or comments by council? Any other questions or comments?
Yep.
Okay. Righty. So with that, understanding that, of course, this is a public meeting, and we're going to open the floor to any public comment. If there's any public comment, we'll entertain that now. Don't know if we have anybody by way of our Facebook page that want to chime in on this item. Oh, YouTube, I'm sorry. YouTube will allow, now there is a slight delay. Now for anyone who's attending, so we would
have
allow
no users.
no users at this time. So if there's no other comments, if there's nothing from the floor, no comments or questions
Mitty,
from
do
the
you have a
floor.
comment?
No, it sounds like they're going.
Okay.
Okay.
No comment.
Hearing none, we'll close the floor to public comment. We'll come now back to the dais. We'll see if there's any information or comments from our staff and or our attorney as well.
Mr. Mayor, I'll defer to our planning staff who's here tonight, Osneil Leon from Chinmore and Associates. But basically what you're doing at this meeting is a favorable vote would be to move to make a recommendation to the town council for approval, if you so desire. But again, I'll defer to planning staff if they'd like to add anything.
Yes, thank you. For the record, Osneil Leon with planner for the town of Mongonia. I just wanted to point out that this application before you is only for the comp plan amendment. The zoning text changes will be back before you at another time, a separate application after recommendation from the LPA and the council recommends approval. It will be transmitted to the Department of Economic Opportunity. And if there's a favorable approval, recommendation for approval, then it will become before you as a second hearing. It will be finalized, and then the text amendments will come before you.
Thank you so much. We've heard from our planner. We'll see if there's anything from our attorney.
Committee, go ahead.
He said exactly what I was going to say. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thanks so much. Okay, great. Okay, now, it appears as if all questions or comments have been attended. Okay, Councilwoman Webb.
If approved, I wanted to know what would be the turnaround time? Like, is it a year, 2 year, 3 year process?
So all this step kind of culminates in sending off for state funding in August. And then we find out about the award in January, roughly January, right? In that time, between now and January, we'll be submitting other components of the application. And then I would assume, when would ground be?
You typically have about 6 months of underwriting once we're selected for funding.
Okay.
So it is a lengthy process. You'd expect basically 12 months from now would be starting construction. And then we'd expect about a 12-month construction period, so you'd be looking at about 2 years from now before the doors are open.
Next question. It says right here, 30% of their income. Say, for example, Susie comes in and her income is what? Say 28%. It says resident pay only 30% of their adjusted monthly income for services.
That's a different project. That's,
Okay.
This is Joe Buster.
You're going to need
Yeah,
to come to the podium.
Okay, and just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Joe Glucksman. I'm president of McCurdy Senior Housing Corporation, a 501c3 not-for-profit that provides affordable housing with a speciality in seniors. And Dan Oleski.
I'm Dan Oleski. I'm with Royal Building Group. I'm a consultant who's involved in the project, and I do project management for affordable housing, and I work with the investor side as well as the not-for-profit in order to kind of put the whole package together and get the funding and get things moving.
Well, let me address the 30% issue, okay? I was amiss in giving you the book here at this meeting.
I asked because they just passed a law that reduces, I don't remember the specifications of it, but it reduces the amount that one pays where housing is concerned.
Well, that reference that you made, the 30%, 28%, is in regards to project-based housing assistance program from HUD, rental subsidies, Section 8 vouchers, okay, is what they used to be called. And once that is put in place, and we have not made any determination as yet that this particular community will receive or will we apply for project-based assistance. But if so, those people that are eligible income-wise will only spend 30% of their adjusted gross monthly income on rent and utilities. The rest of it is picked up by HUD through the local Palm Beach County Housing Authority. Okay, so if we do establish project-based rental assistance here at Waterview Towers, then there's going to be a lucky bunch of people that have got extremely low incomes that will receive a lot of subsidy to be able to live.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, certainly, and of course, there'll be a lot of those questions coming later as it relates to it's just a project and how it's going to be funded and such. So as it relates to the actual comprehensive development of the LPA, the purpose of it here, are there any other questions as it relates to the item before us? Okay, and I think we probably had full discussion and also had a presentation as well. So if there's no other questions or comments, we'll now move to a vote. Motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, so moved that we approve ordinance number 20. Oh, make the recommendation. Stuck in approval. Mr. Mayor, I so move that we make the recommendation for ordinance number 2023-01. Do I have to read the whole thing?
Okay. Motion has been made to make a recommendation to the town council for approval of ordinance 2023-01. Is there a second?
I second that recommendation.
Has been properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Buchanan Webb.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis Quinn.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yes.
And Mayor Alberry.
Yes.
It passes unanimously for recommendation.
Thank you so much. Seeing that that was the only item before this body, a motion for adjournment.
I so move.
I second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye, pose same sign. It is carried. Thanks so much. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll adjourn for the regular council meeting to attend to this item. Yeah, put that away. We don't need that. We don't need it.
So they lowered it.
And the FPO changes all the time.
He emailed both of us this afternoon.
Yeah, well,
And
we'll read it after the meeting, so we don't, if there's any questions on it. No, actually, what we're looking at is the concept that we have.
Yeah, I think what the issue was, so they reduced, I don't know if you guys heard, they reduced the dollar amount. They reduced the dollar amount that you pay. I forgot what the percentage is, but you're now paying like 80 something. I forgot what it was. So when I seen that,
No, and like I said,
but I guess because of cost of living, they went ahead and did that because they still weren't able to pay their rent. Yeah, I still go to the section, I used to be on section 8 when I was younger, so I still go to their meetings and stuff. And I would be grateful. And once you get it, but I think, but like I said, 30, this percentage.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know the percentage.
Oh, he does that.
It was conflict of interest. Conflict of interest.
He will usually go through everything with the council, just some individuals seem to forget between their one-on-one. Okay, thank you.
Or they try
okay,
to.
we're gonna prepare for next meeting. Okay, I'll hold it up so I don't leave it here.
So the meeting is over, let me go give it this. Mayor looked at me like, I see him give her the eye, like, Jesus.
What's that?
Gave me the eye, I'm like, oh, Lord.
That was a little premature.
No, so sometimes we get ahead, and that's fine, so.
You gotta, sister?
Okay, we're gonna get started in the next 30 seconds with the regular meeting, so another 30 seconds, thanks.
I'm ready.
Just wanna make sure you call in. Okay, I'm back in meeting, I just had to step and ask, okay, fine.
I had too much coffee.
Okay, thank you so much for your attendance and for your patience. So at this time, we're going to prepare to call the Town of Mangonia Park special meeting for May 31st, 2023 in the session. Roll call, please.
Mayor Alberry.
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Buchanan Webb.
Here.
Councilmember Davis Quinn.
Here.
Thank you so much, and we do have a quorum, and at this time, of course, we are here to attend to ordinance number 2023, which came by way of a recommendation from the LPA. And at this time, we're going to have our attorney just read by title of the ordinance.
Committee, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for allowing my telephone appearance this evening. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you. As you said, this is ordinance number 2023-01. I need to read it by title. It's an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Mangonia Park, Florida, adopting an amendment to its comprehensive development plan in accordance with the mandates set forth in section 163.3184 et sec Florida statutes, pursuant to privately initiated application number CPA 2023-01, which provides for amendments to the text at future land use element in order to allow for residential uses in eligible parcels within a commercial land use designated area, modify the commercial floor area ratio and establish maximum number of stories and no density limit for residential uses, providing for transmittal to the state land planning agency, providing a conflicts clause, a severability clause, and authority to codify, providing an effective date and for other purposes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much. We've heard it read by title. Are there any questions or comments by council? And of course, this came by way of recommendation from the LPA. Any questions or comments on the item?
No question.
Okay. And of course, this is first reading. And if there's no questions or comments, we'll entertain a motion. Okay, so just before we do, we'll see if there's any comment from the public. We'll open the floor to public comment just before the vote. Seeing that there's no comment from the floor, we'll close the floor to public comment and we'll come back to the dais. But any questions or comments as it relates to ordinance 2023-01, first reading? Hearing none, motion please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the amendment to the comprehensive development plan as stated in ordinance 203-01.
Motion has been made to approve ordinance 2023-1. Is there a second?
Second.
Has been properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Buchanan Webb?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis Quinn?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Alberry?
Yes.
It passes unanimously for first reading.
Thank you so much. And seeing that that is the only item for a special meeting, we're going to now entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
And
Properly moved and seconded. I'm sorry, question?
we will have a workshop after this with the PBSO.
Thank you so much.
I move.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the adjournment, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. It is carried. All right, thanks so much, and we appreciate all of the attention. Thanks so much for our new employees that are here as well. Thank you so much. We appreciate you attending.